live at 11:05 on BC. This is Spirit Cars, and we're going to be putting a spindle together. But I have to give an advisory. I know I got busted on the axle thing. Somebody misspelled it. Although she didn't misspell it. She thought I was going to do a triple axle coming in, so she spelled it correctly for that. But we're actually going to work on the axle of a T-bucket. So anyway, this is a spindle. Our camera person didn't know that until we just started it. She didn't know how to spell spindle correctly. So if it's spelled incorrectly, let us know. I mean, make sure you let us know. And this will be a bearing adapter. And these are the bearings. And this is a 1937 to 41 spindle, Ford spindle. I mean, it has become the standard hot rod spindle. Obviously, this is a reproduction. The original would have the arms already onto it. So it'll have bolt-on arms and all that, except we're going to push this bearing adapter on because we use a modern caliper. When I say modern, it'll be a GM caliper and rotor. So I got to push this on so I can put a different rotor on it. And I have a press here, which makes that very handy. Also, the heating and cooling process, if you heat one part and cool the other, this will shrink and that'll expand and it'll be also go on there a little easier. Since this is painted already, I'll probably, not a bad idea. We've made this little, pretty simple little press. I mean, it's all we use it for is putting these pieces on. Got a little tube. Doesn't have to be real complicated. I mean, it does take quite a bit of pressure to push it on. So a press would be nice. If you don't have a press, you could probably take it to any machine shop and they would do it relatively cheaply. I've got, oh, it doesn't take much. I've got 10,000 pounds of pressure already. But you can feel once it stops, it hits the bottom, it stopped, it's on. It's all good. My bearing adapter's on. Now I'm ready for modern brakes. So we will hustle over to the car. Live. So we're live. We could have edited that out, but obviously, since we're live, we didn't. So we use a Super Bell. Been dealing with Jerry and the boys over there for a long time, but Pete and Jake's, they just have really good products. There's a steering arm that you can get flat metal and it's bent and it's kind of funky looking, but this is the steering arm we used. I started putting this one together already. So this, you got a left and a right. This is the spindle. So I like the grease zerks to be up front. And now depending on the spindle you get, some of the grease zerks are in the back here, some are here and there. Now there's several different people that make the spindles. Again, we use the Pete and Jake's on this one. So Pete and Jake's, we're just been a dealer for them a long time and pretty pleased with what they do. The brake bracket, this is going to be chrome. This is going to be kind of a combination, some chrome and some painted. I mean, it looks good. It's not just all chrome. So you got the brake bracket. This is a separate hide your back side of the rotor when you put the rotor on, and leaves it real clean looking on the back side. Got holes to match. Now you do have a left and a right, and these are actually marked on here. There's an R and a L. So they go onto the spindle. This would be the top. You can kind of see there's a bit of an angle on there. It's not straight. The axle's a little bit angled back. And we want the caliper to be angled to the back side of the spindle. So those holes are going to line up for that. So you can kind of see the holes through that. Can you see the holes through that? Not really, but they'll line up. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put it together to get it started. Since I'm not going to just totally finish it, it would be good to have some Loctite on here. And so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put it all together, and once I get it pulled tight, put it on, I'll probably pull some bolts off one at a time, put the Loctite in and tighten it back up. There's two ways to steer the car. One is going to be a slingshot arm on this side. You'll steer from the back. The arm will come along, steer the top of the spindle. Then this steering arm is for the little bit, in my opinion, but hot rodding is about a lot about opinions anyway.
Hold on. Okay.
Okay, am I back? All right. So on cross steer, what you're going to do is you're going to steer the right side. So your steering arm on the right side then would have two holes. So the second hole would be where your steering arm goes, and then the drag link would go to the other side, and your right wheel would steer your left wheel then. Hopefully that made some sense. There is a argument that goes on. If you use slingshot steering, you're going to get bump steer. Okay, for all you mathematicians out there that are machinists that deal in the hundreds and thousands, okay, technically, yes, you'll get a bump steer just because of the angle. When it bounces, it's going to move the one wheel farther and it'll move a little bit. But in reality, the amount of bump steer that you get is so insignificant, so minor, so unnoticeable, so unless you're a math to see a bump steer. Unless, of course, you're doing some significant off-roading, like you just hit a ditch and you're about to fly down the side of a mountain here in the Arkansas, and your front end is traveling this much, like you got a four-wheeler. Now that will increase the amount of travel for your angle and increase the amount of potential bump steer. But that being said, the amount of travel on your front end, even if I get on here and jump on it going over a bump, you're probably not going to travel your front end more than, I'm making this number up, but I'm probably going to be close. I bet it don't travel more than an inch or inch and a half. I don't remember the spring rate up front offhand. We use a 150-pound spring rate in the back, generally, for our coilover shocks. Okay, so I'm looking good, and don't get frustrated if you get confused which one goes here, if it goes in the back or goes up here or goes back and forth. You know, generally I still have to think about it. But so my spindle's here. My rotor's going to go onto the outside. My caliper will go on here. My steering arm comes up under here, and it's go to the back. So be very, very careful when you put your steering arm on. If you cross-thread this, and it will easily cross-thread, you've got a big mess. You'll plan on buying new steering arms. So get one started. Make sure it's started good, and then before I even get close to tightening it, I like to start the other side. Okay, again, be careful, don't force it. What's going to happen, this is going down, I should have showed you that beforehand, but this brake bracket here is going down over a collar, and it's going to be with the paint and the chrome, it's going to be very tight. So with no paint and no chrome, it fits on almost exactly. So it's going to press it on as you're going to pull these four bolts. So tighten them, kind of tighten it, tighten it, tighten it. Don't get one over tight and leave the whole thing in a bind. So try to pull it in all together. And again, once I get this all together now, I'm going to go ahead and take this out one at a time. It'll be where it goes. I want to put some Loctite on that. You don't want your steering arms to come loose. After we get this, see, I'll take you kind of into the brakes, but we won't finish all brakes. We've got, this is a GM setup. We're gonna use a GM rotor. And Super Help Bell has pretty good instructions. They're in the box. And I think, in fact, I have them right here. So they got some helpful tips on here and you know, parts list. And if I'm using a GM caliper, I'm going to have to change the inner race. I'm sorry, if I'm using a GM rotor. Because what'll happen with the race that's in there, this bearing is going to hold it. I believe it's going to hold it out just a fraction too far, and your caliper is not going to fit directly in the center of that, and it's just going to basically rub a little bit. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to knock this inner race out, put this inner race in place of that one. Then the bearings come with the kit. You got bearings, you got inner bearings, you got outer bearings. Put the seal on after you get it all, you know, greased, of course. Put it on. Then you're basically, this isn't going to go on till your spindles are on the front end though. So I've got this tightened up to at least show you. Here's an issue you're going to have with chrome sometimes. There's a couple different kingpins. This is a basic one. They've got one with an aluminum cap on it. This kingpin should drop right in there. I mean, it should drop right in there and be tight, but do not drive it in with a hammer. I mean, let me repeat that. Do not drive it in with a hammer, even if it's tempting. Don't do it. On an original type spindle, matter of fact, they may come in the kit. They do. What holds the kingpin on is this little cert thing drives into the axle and holds it in, and it goes through, and what it's going to do is it's going to hold into this gap. Can you see how that slides in there? So this will slide into a hole slot, holding that in. It's a bit wedged, and then you put a nut on the back side of it. But that's not what we do on our 4-inch, 6-inch drop axle. It's a tube axle, spring behind. You can see on the back side here, there's a little set screw. Can you see our set screw back there? Mm-hmm. So once you want to, now, I'm gonna have to take a hone. I'm gonna have to take a hone, get a little oil, put my hone in here, and I'm gonna hone this cylinder, this boss up here. I'm gonna hone it up and down. I was gonna get a drill, show you how to do that, but it's just a matter of, you get your chair, put some good music on, and you're doing one of these, honing up and down, honing up and down. Don't let your hone come all the way out the bottom. You'll bust your stones, but have to do that for a while. Get the kingpin fitting good. The kingpin will go through your spindle. There's already brass bushings in there. See how easily that slides. Then there's going to be a bearing goes on the bottom side. It'll all sit in there. All be good. That's pretty close. Maybe tomorrow, I think, since we've been following up on this one, I believe tomorrow we may go ahead and bolt the rest of the master cylinder together, bolt the steering arms on. We may just kind of finish the assembly of the chassis on this one. Put the steering arms, the drag links, the panhards, that can all be done. We used to do I guess you call it a publicity stunt. Some of you who are watching may have even helped me do it. We go all over the country and we build a car at a show. And I'd get volunteers from the crowd and we would have this thing all blown apart. When you're done, make sure it's tight. Go over it again, make sure it's tight. I can't say that enough. Tight, everything tight. Gotta be tight. 5 to 7 degrees, this will be leaning back. Your axle will be leaning back. You can adjust that. I believe we talked about it when we did the axle. Your toe in, when we put the drag link on, I'll describe that, but there's some controversy even in the shop. Do we want an 1/8 inch in? Do we want an 1/8 inch out? Do we want it straight? I mean, everything's tight, no leaks. So that's about it for today. We're moving ahead. I think we've actually done 3 videos in a row of putting a suspension together. Do another 1 or 2 and we should have this thing together, and we'll put them together as a block. Who knows? We may even edit it together as one, or do it again and make an edited version available. So that's it for today. I hope everybody is well. I don't have any words of wisdom for today.
I've seen
mean,
this.
Stainless. Make sure you put anti-seize on that. If you put a nut on stainless or chrome, it's going to run into problems. But yes, there's a place for all of those. They kind of contradict each other, but best news I got is this is the day tomorrow.